Hello, my name is Anna, and I love trying vintage recipes, but that's not what I'm doing today. Today, I'm trying 3 recipes from the Unofficial Dollywood Cookbook. And I'm trying these recipes because it is my birthday. And I have 2 friends who are helping me celebrate, Jim from Jim's Kitchen and Sherry from Cooking with Sherry. They are also going to be cooking some Dolly-themed recipes in honor of my birthday, so please do go check out their videos after you're finished watching mine. If you've been with me for a while, you know I love Dolly, and my sister-in-law actually gave me the Unofficial Dollywood Cookbook for Christmas, and I have just been itching to try out some of the recipes, and I thought, what better way to try them and share them and show them off than to make a video about it. So I hope you enjoy this one, and let's get going with some Dollywood-themed snacks. I really feel like I can't do a Dollywood recipe without featuring sweet tea. It's just not possible. I'm cutting this recipe in half, mostly because I don't seem to have a pitcher that has a capacity over 64 ounces like the one they mentioned in the recipe. So this has a capacity of 40 ounces, so we'll work with what we have. Place baking soda in a heat-resistant pitcher. Got a little bit of baking soda here, and from my understanding, this gives it a smoother taste. It kind of like reduces the tannins, makes it less acidic. And it can also help with the cloudiness of the tea. I usually do put baking soda in tea whenever I make it, like sweet tea. Add boiling water into tea bags. So I have my cup of boiling water. And also my tea bags. I am using Louisiana tea just because I remember the commercials from when I was a kid about how it was supposed to be the best tea for iced tea. I was influenced back then. So now I need to let this steep for 15 minutes. So this has been steeping for 15 minutes, and now I need to remove the tea bags, which I do like this. And now I need to add my sugar. And you can make this unsweetened as well. I chose to make it sweetened, but do whatever you want. So I'm just gonna stir that until the sugar is dissolved. I just love the smell of this. It smells so good. And I don't always remember to make iced tea, you know? It's not something I make all the time. I kind of go in stages where I'll have it for a while and then I'll get away from it. Now I just have my cold water and I'll give that a stir just to, you know, make sure it's all dissolved. But now I actually need to let this sit at room temp for an hour, and then I need to chill it for an additional 4 hours. So this is definitely something that you're gonna wanna make ahead of time. I have my nice frosty glass of sweet tea, and I thought it was only appropriate to drink it out of a jar. It seems very Dolly and very Dollywood. So let's give it a try. That is sweet, that is sweet. That is definitely a sweet treat, I would say. But you could easily cut down on the sugar, cut the sugar out completely and like sweeten it with your favorite, you know, stevia or equal, I don't know what people are using these days. But it tastes very, very good because it's sweet tea, and I like sweet tea. But I think I might actually go back to the store and get some decaffeinated black tea bags because this is like full on caffeine. And I do try to prioritize my sleep, and if I have this in the afternoon, it's not gonna be good for me. I'm gonna be awake all night, but it does taste good. It is very refreshing, and iced tea is really one of those things that I don't always think to make, so I need to add this to my regular beverage rotation. Next, I'm gonna be trying these incredible looking chocolate chunk cookies. I'm using my stand mixer with the paddle attachment as recommended in the recipe, but first I have to show you my spatula. This is my Dolly spatula that I got from the Williams-Sonoma collection last year for Christmas. I'm adding half a cup of very soft butter to the bowl of my stand mixer. Half a cup is 1 stick of butter. Next comes a 1/4 cup of white sugar and half a cup of packed light brown sugar. And I'm gonna mix that together for about 6 minutes. After that's done mixing for 6 minutes, I'm adding 1 egg and 3/4 of a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I'm mixing that until everything is combined. In a separate bowl, I combined 1 1/3 cups all-purpose flour, half a teaspoon of baking soda, a quarter teaspoon of baking powder, and a half a teaspoon of salt. I actually misread the recipe here a little bit. You don't have to sift these together. You can stir these ingredients together, but sifting them really did not have an impact on the end result of the cookie. It was just fine. I brought my stand mixer back in and added the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients in 3 separate additions. And I scraped my mixer bowl before each new addition of dry ingredients. And I mixed these together on low speed until everything was just combined. Next comes the most important part of these cookies, and that is the chocolate. There are 3 different types of chocolate in these cookies. There's semi-sweet chocolate chips, milk chocolate chunks, and dark chocolate chunks. You start off with 1/3 of a cup of each type of chocolate, but then you have to reserve 2 tablespoons of each one for later use. So basically, you're going to be pressing this reserved chocolate into the top of each cookie to make them even more beautiful. So I set the reserved chocolate aside and added the rest to my cookie dough. And I just folded that chocolate in. It really helps to have a very strong spatula here because the cookie dough is very thick. Once you've folded the chocolate in, you need to refrigerate this dough for at least 3 hours or even overnight. Okay, so I've had the dough in the refrigerator for about 5 hours at this point. Here's what it looks like. So now it's time to scoop. Okay. It says to scoop by heaping quarter cups. So I have this like quarter cup scoop. It's pretty firm, so I'm gonna do my best here. And actually what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is maybe scoop them into my hand and kind of like form them a little. And I have to leave a lot of space, it says, between them. So I'm probably not gonna put too many on each sheet. Press down lightly using bottom of scoop. Okay, so I need to press this a little bit. Yeah, alrighty. I pressed it. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe 4. Maybe we try 4 at a time. These are very generously sized cookies. I'm gonna try to make these like a little more round, I guess. Okay, so I've got 4 on here. So now remember the chips and the chunks that I reserved, that's where they are. So you press a few into the top of each cookie for aesthetic purposes so that it ends up looking like that. So we'll do just like a mix. I think that's probably good, right? I think that's enough. So now I have to bake these for 13 minutes. And then after they bake, you're supposed to let them cool on the sheets for about 10 minutes before you take them off. Just look at how pretty these are. They're very nice. I ended up with 8 cookies. It said you were supposed to get 9, so I guess I made each of my cookies a little bit too large. Who's gonna be mad about that though? I would say I had a little bit of extra like chocolate pieces left over, just like cover the top as much as possible. You know, when they do bake up, some of them looked a little more bare than others. So I would say like use all of the chocolate pieces, even if you don't think you need to. But there's also chocolate in them too, so. All right, I think it's time. Yeah, these are really good. I did bake them a little bit longer. I think the time in the book listed was like 13 minutes. I went 15 minutes. You know, you want to make sure that the edges are golden brown. I did take a photo of the first batch that came out so you could see what that looked like. But the bottom is nice and golden, but it's still nice and soft in the middle. I think the amount of dough scoops, I think that was a great size. These have a nice buttery flavor. It's a chocolate chip cookie though. I mean, like how can you go wrong? You just, I don't know that you can. Yeah, this one's a keeper. I will definitely make it again. I'm gonna try out this Frito Pie. And here is where it is available in the park. It's in Dollywood's Splash Country, so that's the water park. I feel like many people have many different ways of making Frito Pie, but this is how you would try it at Dollywood. Heat oil in a medium pot over medium heat, add onion and cook for 3 minutes. Okay, can do. It's a very small amount of olive oil, just a couple of teaspoons. And I just have a small onion that I have chopped pretty fine. And now I need to just cook this for about 3 minutes. Now that my onion has been cooking for 3 minutes, I need to add 8 ounces of ground chuck. And I'm gonna break that up a little bit with my spatula into small pieces. And I just need to let this cook through. My ground chuck is all cooked through, and it says to drain and leave just a small amount of fat in the pot. There's not a lot of fat in here to begin with. So I am gonna opt out of draining. There's just not that much there. I'm adding some garlic. I have a couple of frozen garlic cubes here because I didn't realize I was out of just like regular fresh garlic. Stir those in and let them thaw out. But if you were using fresh garlic, it would be 2 cloves of minced garlic. Next, I'm adding a can of fire roasted diced tomatoes. You do not drain these. Just leave the juice in there. 1 can of red kidney beans. These have been drained, but they have not been rinsed per the recipe. It said not to rinse them. 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. And finally, the chili in the chili. This is 3 tablespoons of chili powder. So this is gonna be thick. I'm gonna stir that all together. I triple checked the recipe. I don't see any like water or anything like that in here. This is everything. Well, it's everything until you actually make the chili into Frito pie. So I've upped the heat to high and I need to bring this to a boil. And it's there. So now I need to reduce the heat to low and let it simmer uncovered for 25 minutes. Take a look at that. So beautiful. I'm gonna give this a try. A couple of quick thoughts. This chili is super thick, and that's what it's supposed to be. It's perfect for this application, but I think it would be really, really good over a baked potato as well. Actually, I think what I wanna do is just try to take a bite of the chili on its own just to try it. Very good. A little bit zesty from the chili. I used Gebhardt's chili powder, which has a really good flavor. If you wanted to spice it up more, you could add a pinch of cayenne. I don't think it needs that. This is just about right for me. It's not super salty, but the Fritos are super salty. And if you're making this specifically to go on Fritos, that's kind of what you want. You don't want it to be too salty because you're gonna combine it with something very salty. I went fork with this. I don't know if fork is the good choice or if I should have done spoon, but let's see. Let's get everything. We got some Fritos, get some scallions and some sour cream. You know, let's get a tomato. So good. This would also be great for walking tacos. So if you just have little bags of Fritos and you want to put the toppings on that, that's a super fun thing to do for dinner or for a party or something like that. I think you could also do, like, if you are doing a party, make this recipe, probably double it. This only makes 4 servings. Make the chili recipe, put it in a crock pot and let people build their own. I think that's a really fun way to do things. Yeah, I do appreciate that these recipes make kind of smaller quantities. Usually for chili, I think, oh my gosh, a huge pot of chili. And this just makes 4 servings. So it's kind of perfect for my small household. So as I mentioned earlier, I got this cookbook as a Christmas gift from my sister-in-law. And I had never been to Dollywood before last year. If you're one of my patrons, you might actually know this because I did show a few photos from my trip. But I've actually been to Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, Tennessee before, several times, but I'd never been to Dollywood until last November. My husband actually surprised me with an extended weekend trip. One of the reasons I don't think I'd ever been to Dollywood is because I'm really not like a roller coaster person. You know, after visiting, Dollywood has so much more to offer than just like rides and stuff. It's fun for people with a lot of different interests, really. We went, oh my gosh, I love recapping this trip. So we happened to get there just in time for the Smoky Mountain Christmas. So it was beautiful. Like the park was just twinkly with lights, even during the day, because when we went, it was a little bit overcast. It was actually raining, which kind of worked in our favor because it kept the crowds at bay. I was just so thrilled to be there that I had my raincoat with me and it rained on and off. It really wasn't too bad. If we had to, we could kind of like duck into a place to take shelter. They have a lot of different places like that. So this would have been like the first week in November. I think that Smoky Mountain Christmas is like it's like right after Halloween. So they change out the Halloween decorations and go into Christmas decorations. And it is just so much fun. I'll kind of throw in some of my photos here and there. I was so excited to be there. I'm not great at sometimes remembering to take footage and photos and things if I'm just trying to like live in the moment. So I wasn't a very good YouTuber there and I didn't really take a lot of footage. It was just so much fun. And being there at that particular time meant that there were special foods and snacks for the holidays. So the recipes I tried today, I actually didn't try any of these while I was in the park because we really mostly stuck to like the special seasonal themed foods and also the cinnamon bread. I think the cinnamon bread is probably one of the top reasons to visit Dollywood. It is that good, folks. I mean, the smell is heavenly. We were actually very lucky. We didn't have to wait in line for it, but it's just this delicious, like pillowy, soft bread coated in cinnamon sugar. And you can get a vanilla icing like dipping sauce or an apple butter dipping sauce. So good. One of the top things. I'm not even joking. We were able, because I'm not really a rides person, we were kind of like able to do it in about a day. And I personally loved going and visiting at the time that we did because it wasn't very hot. It can get pretty hot in Tennessee in the summer, especially. And I don't do well in the heat. My husband doesn't do very well in the heat. So I think the season that we visited in, the park was still open. You know, everything was pretty much still available to us. So that was kind of the perfect time for us to go. And it was a lot of fun. We spent the day there and then we went and we did some of our other favorite things in Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg. In addition to Dollywood, I did go to her hometown, Sevierville, and I took some photos of the Dolly Parton statue, which is there. If you're looking for a nice little, I don't know, it really depends on how far away you live. We are within, I would say, a reasonable drive for a long weekend. You might have to travel a little farther, but I would recommend visiting if you're a Dolly fan. Really, it is a fun experience, and I hope that we get to go back again soon. Okay, so let's talk about the Unofficial Dollywood Cookbook. So unofficial, these are 100 delicious Dollywood-inspired recipes. So, these might not be exactly the recipes that they're using in the park, but I gotta say, the 3 that I tried from this book were very good. Very solid recipes. So let's start with the sweet tea. I know, it's sweet tea. It can't be too hard to make, right? This really was a delicious treat. And I made it because I wanted, sort of like a refreshing beverage. And sweet tea is not something I always remember exists or, that I remember to make. So this was a really good recipe. The proportions were good and you can kind of sweeten it to your liking. Next were the chocolate chunk cookies. Those cookies were so good. And I mean, yes, chocolate chip cookies are good. They just are. But I really liked the texture of these in particular. I baked them on parchment paper as recommended in the recipe, so the bottoms got a little bit crisp when you took them off the pan, and the inside stayed very soft. As for the chocolate, I don't necessarily think, if I make these again, I may not do all 3 types of chocolate. I think I would do like 2 types of chocolate. It's just overall a really good chocolate chip cookie recipe in general. They are generously sized. You could probably split one with a friend, but the recipe just makes, 8-9 cookies. So they don't last very long. We had some friends over for dinner and we had those for dessert. So they were gone pretty much like the next day between us and our friends. I think these would also be a really good cookie dough to freeze. So if you want to like scoop a couple and bake them off and then scoop the rest and freeze the dough balls, I think that could work really well. And that's probably what I'll do next time, like when I make a batch, because I love having just balls of cookie dough in the freezer that I can bake whenever we want like a quick treat or something. For some reason, I could not find the milk chocolate chunks. I know they exist. They might be a little bit seasonal. I tried like 2 stores, 3 stores. I just couldn't find them. I happened to have a milk chocolate baking bar in my pantry, so I ended up chopping that up and it worked just fine. It was perfect. I got the look I wanted, got the taste I wanted. These cookies are on my list to make, again, probably a lot. And then finally, the Frito Pie. Like I said when I was making the recipe, people have different ways that they make Frito pie. Some of it actually is in more of a pie shape, or they make it in kind of a walking taco style with little bags of corn chips. This was kind of like, I just did it in a bowl, so I put some corn chips in the bowl. Those corn chips were left over from my corn chip cheese dip recipe that I made in my 1950s party snacks video. It's like the bag of Fritos that keeps on giving. I've used it in like 3 recipes. And also this made 4 servings, which was very nice and very manageable. So I had it that day that I made it for lunch, I had it the next day, and then I just put the rest in the freezer. And that kind of thing, like chili, is something that freezes really well. So I can have that, you know, when I'm craving it again, I can have it for a meal down the road. Really good. It was pretty zesty, and that could come down to the type of chili powder I used. The amount was really good. This was very well seasoned. If you like things a little bit more spicy, you could definitely add cayenne pepper, but the amount of spice in it with just the chili powder was actually perfect for me. So it was between the chili powder and then the black pepper as well. It was super tasty, just such an enjoyable thing to eat with the toppings. You know, you had your tomatoes, you had your sour cream and cheese, and those scallions. Just such a good combination. I may actually take the rest of it and put it on a baked potato. I think that would be really good. Or you could do like loaded tater tots. That would also be really good. I loved the recipes that I made in this book. Like all 3 were winners. There's another thing about this book that I love that I haven't mentioned. I did kind of touch on it a little bit. So the name of the recipe appears at the top of the page, but then underneath that, it says where that particular food would be located in the park. You know, the park is kind of divided into different sections. There's also a water park. It's called Splash Country. I'm not a water park person. I've never been there. And then there's also Dolly's resorts that she has. So there's some of those recipes in here as well. So I think if you love Dollywood, if you love Dolly, this book is definitely something that you might want to add to your collection. So I tried the 3 recipes in this video for you all. But then before this, I actually did try the cinnamon bread recipe and it was pretty good. So even if they're not the exact recipes that are being used in the park, I would say they're pretty good dupes. So if that is something that you enjoy, definitely pick up a copy of this book for your collection. So have you been to Dollywood? If so, please tell me about your experience. Tell me about your favorite things because I do plan to go back. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you'd like, you can support me over on Patreon. I do have a little bit of additional content over there, so I'll leave a link in the description if you'd like to join. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.